This is a regular meeting of the Board of Education to consider the initial presentation of the 2018-19 budget. Can we all stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just so that you're aware, there's an error in our agenda. We have a school welcome. We're thrilled, by the way, to be here. Thank you, Mr. Schmidt, for hosting us in your school again. We conduct all budget meetings, and we like being here. But this was an error that there was an addition to the school welcome. So without, I guess as a posted agenda, we need a motion to amend. Dr. Francis, in a second. Yes, second. All those in favor of removing that item? 7-0. Unfortunately, Doctor, while I'm promoting her today, Mrs. Applebaum could not be with us tonight, so it's 7-0. With that, can I have a motion to approve the agenda as modified? Dr. Francis, Ms. Rothstein. All those in favor of accepting the agenda as amended? 7-0. With that, just by way of process, just as a reminder to everybody, this is the first of multiple budget meetings. We'll conclude with essentially reviewing and approving our budget in December. I think everybody knows the schedule. The purpose of tonight is to hear from Dr. Gilday and have her present the budget, and then in subsequent meetings, we'll take detailed questions. So with that, Dr. Gilday, welcome to Greenwich. I'm very much looking forward to hearing your proposal for school.
Thank you. All right, can you hear me okay? I can hear it, so it's probably working. Excellent, I'll let you guys get comfortable. I don't know if you want to move or if you want to turn your seats or if you're comfortable. All right, good evening to the members of our board and Greenwich community. The superintendent's proposed 18-19 operating budget of $156,499,530 represents a 2.19% increase over the current year's budget and is within the Board of Estimate and Taxation's overall budget guidelines. The proposed operating budget represents a continuation of level services. In addition, the 2018-2019 operating budget will include an accounting change issued by the town of Greenwich to transfer school-related items that were previously budgeted with the town. That represents $3,190,331. So with this accounting change included, the 18-19 operating budget will be $159,689,861. I'm from a smaller district, so we were in the like 39 and 40 millions. So this is a bigger number. All right, we'll see if I can get this to click. All right, what do you think, guys? Tech expertise here. They might just stand and click for me. Thank you. We're actually one before that. There we go. One before. All right. So our focus as a school district is to place students at the center of all that we do, including the development of our operating and capital budgets. Our district commitment is to set the conditions for all students to experience learning as relevant and meaningful to the real world. We are moving toward realization of our strategic plan, and the budget was built upon the following principles. Oh, you want to see? Let's take a peek at those. We're having fun. Fun with technology. Oh, too bad. You're giving them all the previews. Now, what fun is this, right? You already have the preview now. Cute kid. One more back. All right. So as we look at our strategic plan, we really built this on a principle of fiscal responsibility. We worked with the Board of Ed budget limits, the Board of Estimate and Taxation guidelines, and we looked at right-sizing our budget in 2 phases with some cost containment strategies and some budget management redesign. So this is something that Lori O'Donnell and I are looking forward to over the next year, is really looking at each of the programs and services and evaluating those for efficiency, effectiveness, and then coming back to you with additional recommendations. We're also looking at redesigning this budget process, keeping an introduction, of course, but then looking at the different ways that the budget is developed. We would like a Board of Ed strategy session much earlier in this process, because you will see as the presentation goes on, we did not include programs and service additions this year. So we did look, though, at student enrollment and student need. We looked at maintaining our class size guidelines. We looked at maintaining the programs and services we do have, but not adding, and then maintaining our allocation for new school bell times. The mission of Greenwich Public Schools is to educate all students to the highest levels of academic achievement, to enable them to reach and expand their potential, and to prepare them to become productive, responsible, ethical, creative, and compassionate members of society. The community values an exemplary education focused on a comprehensive program of education, high expectations, integrity, accountability, collaboration, diversity, and lifelong learning. The proposed 18-19 operating budget aligns resources with the strategic plan, all in service of achieving the mission and vision of the graduate, which embodies the academic, interpersonal, and personal capacities of each learner. We are showing increasing to steady enrollment projections over the next 10 years. Over the last 10 years, actual enrollment projections have been within 1%, plus or minus, with an average of 100.1% accuracy. So we're pretty confident, in other words, in those numbers. Our projected increase of 145 students are at the secondary level, our 4 secondary schools, the 3 middle schools and 1 high school. We have a decrease of approximately 116 students at the elementary levels. On average, approximately 1 to 2 students per grade per school. There we go. Students in 3 categories collectively constitute high needs students. Students from families qualifying for free and reduced price lunch, students receiving special ed services, and students not proficient in EL, English learning. We have a slight increase due to increase in students receiving special ed services. 4.3% of our Greenwich Public School students have 2 or more of these factors, and 21.1% of students have a single need factor. So in evidence-based models, you see different funding that match student needs. In Connecticut, we're moving towards that model. We don't have it implemented fully yet, but it's something you'll hear more about is student-based, evidence-based learning formulas. So while we have class size guidelines, we don't have the same parallel for our EL guidelines. So we need to be looking at that in future years. Our schools receiving Title I funding have the highest concentrations of students with needs. And that is one of the qualifiers to receive that funding. As we look at our achievement, our SBA scores are in line with like districts and far exceed the state for ELA. And in grade 11, our dashboard metric puts us at the 81st percentile of Connecticut districts. For math, in grades 3 through 8, we also double, in most cases, the state average. And for grade 11, while that score looks low, 62% at level, that actually places us in the 90th percentile of Connecticut districts, with our target being the 92nd percentile. So we're right within range of our target, but you can see it's a very high metric. 84% of our students do meet and exceed their expected growth targets consistently year after year. A college readiness indicator, advanced placement tests. Greenwich Public Schools, our mean score exceeds the national average, and our scores have been increasing over the past couple of years to the point that 90% of our AP exams qualify for college credit. That means a score of 3, 4, or 5 on those assessments. There is a delicate balance in reimagining and redesigning schools of the future, attaining our stretch goals of the strategic plan, and ensuring fiscal responsibility. For this year's proposed operating budget, we have remained level. However, we have not incorporated an estimated $2.7 million in program and service change considerations to further optimize our system in an effort to drive improved overall outcomes and results. As we review our entire budget development and presentation process over this next year, we will establish times for strategic dialogue and direction setting with our board and stakeholders, ensuring that we are in concurrence on these priorities. A snapshot of the budget demonstrates those areas of increase or decrease. I don't know if you wanted me to go over that. Did you want me to go over that? Okay, let's go backwards one. There we go. So if we look at this chart, to orient you to the chart, it's the 2017-18 budget compared to the 18-19 budget in major object codes. So that's looking at our personnel and professional services. So you can see there's just a slight increase there, 1.7%. You can see the services, tuition, transportation, utilities, and rentals went up, and you of course know what those things are. Special needs tuition, rental for different properties that we use like Bank or St. Catherine's. Our supplies and materials actually decreased in use. That can be related to our technology. Maintenance of equipment, furniture, and I think it says roads. Okay, that's gone up apparently, a little bit. And then other, our legal settlements. Again, it's a small amount of money in the big scheme of things, but you can see that even a small amount of money can yield a great, it looks like a big percentage, but it's still relatively small based on the number. And then we, of course, have the accounting changes. So with the accounting changes, we are actually proposing it's 4.28% over last year's budget. But I do believe the town and the BET recognize that they're simply accounting changes to where the town is categorizing different things. And I'll talk about what those things are. All right, so our specific budget increase drivers for 18-19 did include contractual salary increases over the previous year at 1.86%. Transportation contract increase was 7.25% over the 17-18 budget, and as you recall, that contract was renegotiated. And our out-of-district special ed tuition cost represents a 9.87% increase over last year. And that just is based on kids and what they need and getting them to a program that best meets their need if it can't be done here. All right. In preparing for our 18-19 student enrollment, we will see an overall addition of 10.1 funded positions. These positions are necessary to ensure the needs of our students are prioritized and that class size guidelines are adhered to for existing and current program needs. Over this next year, we will continue to learn, review, and assess our staffing plan. So most of these FTE additions you're going to see at the secondary level. So those are specialized content area teachers that are needed for the increased enrollment in those grades. With secondary enrollments increasing, we did bring, that was one part, that's 8.9 FTE, that's across our 6 through 12 enrollment, and an addition of 145 students. Typically our average for that class size guideline is about 15.5, so we're pretty close there. The 1.0 FTE is for a teacher of the visually impaired. We used to use a cooperative service that closed. So in order to meet our visually impaired children's needs, we had to hire that ourselves. We also had 3 FTE accounting correction, meaning that the teachers were actually added last year, but they're being increased this year. or shown this year in the budget. With GOSA, we have 1.9 FTE increase, which is really just a shift in how we're accounting for the research manager. She has an administrative certification, so she's being connected that way. And we shifted our continuing ed coordinator from a Liuna town position to an administrator. And again, that person has those credentials. We looked at the Parkway AP shift, so that's also included and captured here. That happened last spring. Our non-certified staff demonstrates decreases, and again, that's based on student needs. All right, let's see, I think I covered all those. Good. So here are those accounting changes that I mentioned. They totaled $3,090,331, and they are represented by private school transportation, technology infrastructure, and then the private school nursing and print shop operator adjustments. In the event we would add program and service changes, this would add $2,650,666, or an additional 1.73% to the budget. We did not add these items, however, although we do feel that the priorities warrant attention to ensure effective operations to benefit our youth. In addition to the slotted $252,000 for transportation, we anticipate another couple of buses are going to be needed to optimize services, including private school transportation. So you can see in this chart, our priority A's, if we just pulled our program service priority A's, that would be 1.4 million. If we also added our priority B's, it's 969,000, just a little over. So the challenge in not adding those things is that this year we have some of those things programmed as pilots. And if we don't include those things, some of them have been on the list 4 years running. Some of them are things that we are using for smooth operations over at the high school. So by not adding those program and services, we are going to have to be doing some adjustment. In the event we would add the requested programming and service changes, our overall budget would increase by 6.01%, which includes the accounting changes. In summary, our 2018-19 operating budget of $156,499,530 falls within BET guidelines and includes staffing required to support secondary level enrollment increases. New programs and service changes remain unfunded in this proposal. Our enrollment projections appear to be steady over the next 5 years. Our students are exceeding state performance targets and are aligned with similarly situated districts across all measures. 84% of our students do meet their annual growth projections. The budget sustains our current model for staffing programs and services. However, the proposed budget supports steady state and will cause a reconfiguring of our current practice in some cases. As we look ahead for this budget cycle, we will add our proposed capital plan on November 27th. Our scheduled Q&A and public hearings will be November 27th and December 21st. Due to holidays falling the week of December 12th, we are going to actually be talking about that at our chairs meeting to see when you'd like that session officially. It's right now scheduled for December 12th, but that's the first night of Hanukkah, so you'll have to decide that. In planning for 1920, we will continue learning, assessing, and making right-sized recommendations as we move forward. In addition, we look forward to taking time throughout the year to fully understand the 15-year facility master plan and our next generation school infrastructure needs. And this is a quote that I really enjoyed from the National School Board Association, really reminding us about the importance of investing in our public schools, because right now we're at a really critical junction in our nation's history, and we really need to support the students that are in our public schools, and we do that in all of the different ways we prioritize our budgetary needs. And here are the key dates in our budget development process and review process. So tonight's really just an overview, and then we get into more detail as we move along. So next steps are the board reviews the program services as well as their full budget. Board members will this year be aggregating their questions in a Google Doc so that we can have those by category. And we have a pretty quick turnaround on those, so they'll provide some questions for us in the next few days. Okay, they'll talk about that. And then we will continue with public input as well as reviews that continue through December with the board, and then move on to the BET level and ultimately RTM, I believe, right? Okay. There we go. I think that's it. Tried to keep it quick for you.
I don't know who the genius was who came up with this, but it looks like a great start. Thank you very much. Okay. We're going to talk about the schedule and the process. But the first is, which we don't normally do, so if anybody, we're going to submit questions, but if anybody has a high-level question for Dr. Gilday about the presentation, anybody? Ms. Erickson.
Just two quick comments. When we're looking at the drivers of the budget, obviously enrollment is the critical driver, and I understand what you're saying about elementary students are decreasing, but it's only a couple students in a couple of classrooms at a couple of different schools. But I see we're budgeted at 208 sections, similar to this year. So if there's any way to look at how those students might actually fall. I see we've applied the staffing model for the secondary school. I know last year we had an increase at the secondary school level. We really sat down and said, do we need to apply the staffing model, or can we make adjustments internally? As always, staffing is a big driver, and to keep elementary sections static with declining enrollment and increasing the secondary school staffing with increasing enrollment, I just think that there needs to be a close look at that. The other comment is just a presentation comment, and this is, I'm not wedded to this, but people are used to seeing this Munis document. I think it's presented a little differently this year, but this is something that we do submit. It rolls up to the BET and to the RTM, so maybe we could generate this. I don't know, it might be helpful.
By the way, I was neglectful. This is the first year that we have an advisory committee to the board on the budget. They've been working now for easily 6 months or longer, probably 8 months, led by Mrs. Erickson. I know there were other members of that committee, but we owe her a debt of gratitude working with both superintendents, how quickly we forget Sal, to provide continuity and transition as Dr. Gilday has taken over to lead the district. So, Laura, particularly on behalf of the board, thank you very much for your leadership in getting us to this point. Any other, I'm sorry, Dr. Francis, did you have a high-level question? I think you did.
Try to keep it high level, but I keep hearing us talking about things that are not in the budget. and Exhibit A. Do we have a sense of when we anticipate having that conversation? Because I have things I'd like to talk about on this list.
Great, you can talk about them tonight, or we can schedule time to talk about them. But basically what we're asking in this is we're presenting to you what we believe is reasonable, obviously the 2.19, but we are really asking for board direction on, can we go over that? Is it possible to go over? And I know that's different than how you've normally done it, and obviously we'd like to right size it. We'd like to do it differently next time and have your input up front. But because we did the program services just a few weeks ago, we thought it best to at least give us the chance to see the board's comfort level with moving a little bit. Moving at the guideline would be about $400,000. Over the guideline, of course, it would be the full.
So in terms of process, I'm going to look left and to the right. Do you guys want to have that conversation now? Do you want to have it at the first Q&A? When would you like to have that discussion? By the way, I presume there's more than one person who wants that discussion. Maybe that was a bad assumption. When would you like to discuss it?
I'd like to come fully prepared to the next meeting to discuss that. And I have topics that I've earmarked to discuss. One of them is career tech. And I know the superintendent will facilitate that discussion in terms of what are our trade-offs. I think anything we do has to be directly tied to the strategic plan in order to pass into the budget beyond what's already included.
I know where you are, Dr. Francis, I think. You're ready either time, right? Yep, okay. Ms. Erickson, do you have a view on this, or when you'd like to discuss this?
I think if people are ready tonight, we should talk about what they're interested in.
Well, I was just wondering if we wanted to also wait for Ms. Applebaum to be with us to have that discussion.
I might suggest that as opposed to a big, deep discussion, I'm sorry, I cut in line.
Yeah. Do you have a view, Ms. Erickson? Okay. Ms. Redden? Sorry.
Share. Oh, Mr. Sure, we have to share.
So Dr. Gilday had presented and asked us for our priorities, and I think you last said that only a couple of us have sent it in. So I'd like to suggest that we do our homework assignment and discuss this at the next meeting.
Mr. Bernstein, let's do it. Are you a different?
I have a question that's not related to this.
Okay, we can get to that one.
I think at the next budget.
Okay,
meeting.
so why don't we just, I think the consensus is we'll have a meaty discussion of this at the next meeting. By the way, if you have, we're going to talk about questions in a minute, but I just want to highlight in that program and services, you're right, we did it homework. Me particularly, but I'm sure others will admit they didn't do it. So what we can do is, if you have questions that relate to those programs and services, when we talk about questions, that should be, because the next meeting will be about Q&A first round, should be included. Ms. O'Neill.
In the budget guidelines sent out by Mr. Lash, it said that some busing and IT would be transferred to our budget, but I see that private school nursing has also been transferred. Was that a dialogue, or was that a decision by the town that said this will be transferred?
I don't know when the dialogue happened. It's always been in our lap since I've been here.
Okay, so do we anticipate any more being moved into our budget? Okay.
No, sorry. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know if anything else is being transferred. I would assume not this year.
Ms. Erickson, I think you had your hand.
Only because I won't be at the next budget meeting.
Okay.
I'm just going to take a moment just to say, there are a couple things on the priority list that are A priorities that seem to me to be the dreaded M word, mandate word. There seems to be some things that we really don't have options to not provide, so I think we really need to look carefully. This is really small print, even with my reading glasses, I'm having a hard time. But the state program to cover internet is going away, and if we're going to do that, that's $50,000. There's other things along those lines that I think we really have to look hard. Never mind the innovation in the programming that we want to consider.
Could you, I didn't realize you weren't at the next one, sorry about that. But could you send a note to copy the full board with your thoughts on this so that, and copy to Dr. Gilday?
I have a lengthy to-do list to send you all, so yes, I'm
Okay.
happy to do that.
Well, no, I just want to be sure your comments were reflected and that we didn't get missed. Anyway, if not, it's okay. Okay, any other big questions? Okay, let's talk about schedule. As you'll be aware, just as a reminder, we will have a budget meeting here at Cascaba on November 27th. That's immediately following Thanksgiving. We will meet again here on December 12th, and then the decision meeting will be on December 21st. Michael, our board secretary, reminds us, not our board secretary, our board assistant, reminded me that we are normally at Greenwich High School. We will not be at Greenwich High School this year. We will be at North Street School. So just a reminder, the 21st, if you go to the media center, you will be enjoying all those books by yourself. What's that? Yeah, probably. So initial round of Q&A. Budget presentation is this evening. The board will submit by I think it's Monday, the 13th, so it's a quick turn, a little quicker than usual. Questions to the superintendent. It'll be necessary, ideally, you should write the question, but as you know, in order for them to easily be put into categories and buckets, there's going to be a format for that. But at the same time, you have to think about tagging your questions. So if you create a multi-part, you probably want to break them up so that they fit into the categories. Where the categories are accounting, enrollment, general program, school start time, staffing, strategic plan, and other. So those will be some categories that are already set. It'll help the superintendent and staff organize the work. But if you've got anything in other, if you could also just indicate by a tag so they know what the subject is, it'll just make it easier for them to sort them. But just in terms of schedule, they'll be due on noon of the 13th. What will happen is the cabinet will take it in, they'll do send it out, they'll look at it, and what will happen is the answers will come back to us on the 20th at the end of business. Okay, in order to, you can all enjoy that while you're having turkey tryptophan naps, but we will be back on the 27th, will be the same. And there's an additional question for the next round of questions. It'll be a similar sort of path. There's a document here, fortunately, that the superintendent and staff have already prepared. I'm sure we can get that to everybody, just so you know what it is. But for this round, 13th by noon, please, is when the questions go in. Jill, did you just want to talk about where this document is located? It's obviously on a share that we'll all be using.
Yeah, you'll just get an email invite to that, and then it's just a Google Doc. You'll just click in. And that's meant for questions only, just a list of questions.
And if you can, again, put your questions so that the question neatly fits in one of the categories that helps the staff. Any other questions about process, steps? I know that our newly elected colleagues are in the room. So I know you guys won't be seated until the 27th, but of course you want to be following along and get each step. And we're thrilled to have you joining the board later this month. With that, any further questions? Dr. Francis. Oh, okay. So we need to talk about the schedule. As you know, we already have this scheduled. I have been told that we're currently scheduled for the 12th, right, Michael? Yes.
Currently, yes.
I have been told that's the first day of a Jewish holiday. So the question is to accommodate that, do we want to move this meeting? The suggestion is to move it to Monday, December 11th. Comments?
I Another thought might be to do it earlier on the 12th, but open a suggestion. Maybe the only one it affects in my two children. We could all light candles together if you want.
But the question is, I know that some people on the board, it's hard with their work schedules to be earlier. What's the preference of the board?
I've got a child concert on the 11th, so I prefer not to be here.
Okay, so could we meet earlier on the 12th as an alternate? It doesn't, it's fine for me. It's fine for me. Does it work for you? You two back there, does that work for you?
What's earlier?
Earlier would probably mean 4 or 5, probably 5. 5 works. I got a yes. A yes. Okay. Okay. Wow. Okay. What should we do?
You have to go with the majority.
Well, no. I mean, we kind of had this already set. Not to belabor this, the alternate proposal would be Thursday, the 14th of December.
I can do that. Do the 12th at 5. I can come late.
Really like to have everybody. 14th? Let me just have 14th. Yeah, 14th doesn't work for you? Okay, that's out. Okay, so 14th's out, forget it. What we're going to do is we're going to go the 12th early. We're going to start. What time does Hanukkah need to start? I'm not familiar. Is it? Oh, that's early. Okay, fine. Then we'll start at 5 o'clock on the 12th instead of at 7 p.m. If we could move that, Michael, renotice that. That would be really, really helpful. Okay. All of it. Any other business before us? With that, Mr. Bernstein?
Move to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor? Over. 7-0. Thank you very much for the presentation. Have a good day.